And welcome to the Hot Lap. We are talking all of the Hungarian Fallout. Yep, Lando Norris, Max Verstappen, and even an interesting tidbit about Lance of the Stroll in his daddy's Aston Martin team. So let's just have a look at what's coming up in our race Fallout. So we have Red Bull explain the childish comment by Max Verstappen. Max's late sim racing. Red Bull are saying they had absolutely no effect. We're going to be talking about that. Also, Norris on the team orders debacle. And last but not least, apparently Stroll refused team orders. That kind of went by the by, didn't it? So, firstly, let's have a look at Red Bull. Now, Christian Horner, he's clarified these childish radio exchange. The word childish was used by GP, Max Verstappen's his engineer. And Christian Horner explained that Max's race engineer was not calling the three-time world champion childish, which we said the other day, directly on the team radio in the aftermath. But now, as we know, Verstappen had that lock-up, regrettably at turn 1, as he hit Lewis Hamilton in his attempt to pass him, bringing about another in what was a series of frank radio messages between the Red Bull driver and his long-term engineer. So Max Verstappen, he'd made multiple complaints to his team throughout the race about how his car had been handling, the strategy he'd been running and more. But he was still in the hunt for the podium after chasing down Hamilton for third. Now, after making a move in turn 1, he was sent, Red Bull, wings, etc. You get the message. He had a hard landing, and Verstappen, he exclaimed he moved under braking, talking about Hamilton, which Hamilton was proved not to. Now, Lambiase said, "I'm not even going to get into a radio fight with the other teams, Max. We'll let the stewards do their thing. It's childish on the radio, childish." Now, when discussing the increasingly fraught radio messages from his driver as the race progressed, Horner was asked about the labelling of childish from Verstappen's race engineer. And he was quick to clarify his belief of what he thought at the moment. He said, GP, I think at that point, wasn't actually referring to Max. I think he was referring to others on the radio complaining about his penalties, Horner said after the race. Yeah. Horner always very quick to protect his number one driver, understandably. He, in terms of protecting, I mean, look how much he ended up protecting. He has so far protected Sergio Perez. So if you want a boss, I imagine working for him is absolutely great. Working against him, probably not so much. Now, interesting tidbit here that I'm just going to share with you is Nico Rosberg on Max Verstappen's plight yesterday. It's something we missed, and I thought I kind of potentially owed it to you guys to have a look. So, if you just bear with me, I'm just going to change the screen. Have a listen.
Yet on the TV, otherwise someone needs to tell him that there was actually a corner which is why Lewis was turning in. Yeah. I mean, Lewis was taking the corner. I'm pretty sure that he's going to get a penalty on that 5 or 10 seconds and drop behind.
So let's listen to it again. This is Nico Rosberg on Max Verstappen's move on Lewis Hamilton. And to be fair, I don't always agree with Rosberg, some doesn't, but I do think he's talking sense here. Let's hear it again.
Yet on the TV, otherwise someone needs to tell him that there was actually a corner that.
He's referring to the fact that Max Verstappen just did not decide to turn once he locked up his tyres. I know, it's very difficult to turn when you lock up your tyres.
Which is why Lewis was turning in.
He was, towards the apex.
The corner. I'm pretty sure that he's going to get a penalty on that 5 or 10 seconds and drop behind.
Now, here's the interesting thing. As we know now, in hindsight, Max Verstappen did not get a penalty. Racing incident. Lewis Hamilton even called it a racing incident, although he was quite surprised that Max Verstappen was blaming him, but Lewis kind of accepted that's just Max Verstappen. I have always said, not always said, but I said yesterday, and I'm holding it today, if you call that a racing incident, I'm absolutely fine with that. By the same token, then Silverstone 2021 is a racing incident. So we can let, Max Verstappen and Lewis fans can rejoice. Racing incidents, let's all be at peace. So, can we? Next up, we have... We've got Max's late sim racing had no effect. Red Bull essentially rubbished the claims. Now, Max Verstappen's anger over the team radio, and to be fair, he was particularly angry. There were a number of reasons why, and that came after he was sim racing until about 3 a.m. in the morning. But Red Bull thinks it's rubbish to suggest Verstappen's frustrations in Formula 1 can be linked to his late night sim racing. He came under fire, did Max, from the critics for what was his aggressive tone on the Hungarian Grand Prix. I think to be fair, that was more to do with things not going his way, the car not being fast. I mean, I imagine it's quite a shock, as it was a shock for Lewis after 2021. In 22 and 23, he didn't win a race until 2024, 56 races, like 900 plus days. So I kind of understand that I'm not saying his world is falling apart, but he's now seeing what was a dominant Red Bull where he did take quite easy victories a lot of the time. Now he really has to work for it. He's really got a race, and he's now making mistakes. He's under pressure, under just as much pressure as he was in 2021. But it does seem he's making the same or similar mistakes in 2021. But in 2021, they kind of, even though he made mistakes and people got out of the way, didn't they? For Max, the amount of times, for example, Lewis Hamilton got out of the way, Spain, Imola. For example, being ones at the first corner, and at Silverstone, he just decided not to. Ergo, we had that unfortunate incident, that racing incident, that many people think that it was. But Lewis, got a 10-second penalty. And it seems like we're back to 2021, Max. Now, the nature of Max's anger in the race came after he was spotted, obviously, taking part in this 3 a.m. sim racing thing. But it's something that Red Bull does not think contributed to what's happened, and I kind of agree. Helmut Marko said he was up even longer in Imola. I don't know where the sleeping times came from again, and won the race. Max has a different rhythm to me or other people, and the time he went to bed is nothing out of the ordinary. He didn't even wake up at 10 o'clock in Zandvoort when the helicopters flew over his motorhome. He's got his sleep quota. He's had it as usual. That's rubbish. Now, Red Bull Horner, he said, I think people draw conclusions, but Max knows what's required and we trust his judgment on that, and I think we need to too. So, for me, this is a story much about nothing, really. It's just trying to get a headline. I know Crofty mentioned it as well, and other people, about his, I think Crofty did, about his sim racing. Maybe that's why he's a bit of annoyed, got out the wrong side of his bed, someone weeding his cornflakes, etc., etc. No, I personally I don't think it's really that. I don't think it's that bad, if I'm honest. But there we go, but maybe. Next up, moving on, finally, from Red Bull and Max Verstappen, Norris. And his response to the team orders fallout reveals an inner conflict, at least according to the race.com. Lando Norris, he turned up for the Hungarian Grand Prix press conference earlier than the other podium finishes, it says. Now, the image of him sat on the sofa for 5 minutes, waiting for the others arrive, foreshadowed what was to come in parts of the 30-minute press conference, as often was the focus on him rather than his race-winning Formula One teammate. Now, Oscar Piastri was the story, but Norris kind of stole his thunder, according to someone. It genuinely seemed he did so inadvertently. It's impossible to know, though, what exactly was going on through Lando Norris's mind throughout. But he repeatedly said he always intended to give the place back, even though, let's be fair, it didn't quite look it. He magnanimously, I got that right, didn't I? He stressed early on that I didn't give up the race win. I lost the race win off the line. That's something we said in our post-race show. And that Piastri deserved the win today. Now, asked how seriously he was considering not giving the place back, he did admit things are always going to go through your mind because you have got to be selfish, before stressing that I'm also a team player. But tellingly, he admitted, my mind was going pretty crazy at the time. As, let's be fair, that's fairly understandable. He was online for his second ever victory. But what made this into such a significant story was the fact that McLaren made its position very clear on that final stint. Boy, didn't they? Repeatedly. Re-establish the order at your convenience, they said. But the fact that there are multiple subsequent inquiries asking to establish at your convenience, and then it wasn't at your convenience, it was now, Lando, do it now for the team. And even Lando said, I don't need to. I know what I want to do and what I'm going to do. And of course, I'm going to just question it and challenge what's going on. And I did, he said. I was going to wait until the last lap, the last corner. But then they said if there was a safety car all of a sudden, I couldn't let Oscar through. Then it would make me look like a bit of an idiot, he said. So I was like, yeah, it's a fair point, and I let him go with 2 to go or something. That's just your opinion of what you hear, he said. But that's the same with all sports. You can make what you will and what you hear and what you think. Yeah, fair enough. I mean, Lando Norris, did he do the right thing? It really is. I mean, we did a poll on who should have won. We even did a poll on who should have run the race. Was it Lando Norris, or was it Oscar Piastri? So let's have a look at that. I'm just going to quickly have a look at that poll on our community server. At the moment, at the time of writing, it's got about 78 votes. But 50, who should have won the Hungarian Grand Prix? 55% have said Lando Norris. 45% have said Oscar Piastri, which may be quite telling. I thought Lando did the right thing, but for the championship, maybe not. Only a matter of time will tell. And if Lando Norris, which I don't think is going to happen, but you never know. Formula One is if spelt backwards, as my Walker used to say. And Mark Blondell, Canadian Grand Prix 1997. Anyway, moving on. Let's talk about Lando Norris. Let's talk about, not Lando Norris, no. Let's talk about another guy with an L in his name at the beginning and a couple of L's at the end of his name. Is, this guy. So, I would have passed Fernando. Stroll ignored team orders to let Alonso by, which I thought was interesting. Now, an overlooked team orders round the Hungarian Grand Prix played out very different to the one which decided the outcome of the race. As we know, we had Lando Norris and Oscar Piastri, but with 6 laps to go, Aston Martin told Fernando Alonso to let Stroll pass into 10th place. The final points position. Stroll, who made his last pit stop later than Alonso and was on fresher tyres. And Aston Martin wanted to give him the opportunity to pass Yuki Tsunoda, who at the time was about 3.5 seconds ahead. Alonso's engineer, Chris Cronin, gave him warning of the team's plan. Fernando, we've got one more lap to close up on Tsunoda. He said with 8 laps to go, but if not, we're going to give a chance to Lance. We will swap back, Cronin added, after they change places. If he doesn't get him, we will swap back. Now, Stroll was given similar messages at the time. Fernando will give you DRS. We'll go past him into turn 1, and then we'll need to get Tsunoda. His race engineer told him, now everything to get Tsunoda now, otherwise we'll swap back at the end of the race. Fair dues. However, from the offset, Stroll indicated his dissatisfaction, saying, I would have passed Fernando, but okay, he replied. Although Stroll took half a second pull out of Tsunoda, his chances of passing the RB looked fairly slim. Cronin advised Alonso to stay within range as he wasn't at risk of being lapped. But 3 more laps to go. Fernando, 3 more laps, he said. If you can, just keep up to Lance so that we can swap back without messing around. Stroll chased Tsunoda around the final lap, but never got close enough. As he entered the final sector, Vizard reminded him to give the place up. Lance, if you don't get him now, you need to switch back before the line, he said. Fernando is 4 seconds behind you. There's no pressure behind. As he neared the line, he said again, Lance, suggest you drop back, let Fernando pass. He's 4 seconds back. Stroll, whose father, as we know, owns the Aston Martin team, gave no reply. He took the checkered flag in 10th, scoring the final point. Neither he or Alonso made any comment as they returned to the pits. Scum, really, isn't it? I mean, that's not very nice at all. That's something Lewis Hamilton did. Why didn't you do that, Lance Stroll? Why? Completely different scenario to the McLaren scenario. Completely different. I'm a bit disappointed, really. Don't expect anything more, really, from Lance Stroll. Though, do you? You know, I mean, look at that smug face up there in the headline. Well, Lance, please do better next time. We know you can. Oh, Lance. So, if you made it to the end, please give us a subscribe. That would be brilliant. If you're not subscribed now, to get all the Formula One news, the rally news, Touring Car is back this coming weekend. So, we'll have a preview there. We'll be talking about the race. And we'll speak to you soon. Thank you very much.